Hey, welcome back to the SBP Podcast Mobile Filmmaking. You're listening to episode 183, and I am your host, Susie Botello. Hey, everybody. I am here with the Honorable, the one and only Henessey Griffiths from FilmConvert in New Zealand. Hello.
Kia ora. How's it going?
Kia ora. That's right. Why don't you tell everyone what that is? Because you say it in the morning, you say it in the afternoon, you say it in the evening.
Yeah, it is a Māori phrase, which are the native people to New Zealand. It's sort of a all-encompassing phrase where it just wishes someone wellness, but usually you say it in the morning. You can also say it as like a goodbye or a thank you. But yeah, it's really nice. It rolls off the tongue quite nicely, like kia ora, you know?
Oh, I like it. Kia ora. Yes, I love it. Well, you're in Wellington, correct?
Yes.
So you're in Hobbit land.
We are indeed. Although I think the actual Hobbiton is maybe about like a 40-minute drive from where we are. Except what's pretty cool is that pretty close to where I live at the moment is Weta Studios. It's out in a different suburb near the airport. And so, yeah, you can go out there and do the tours and see all the fancy post-production things.
Well, FilmConvert, I'll just say it publicly right now. Please invite me.
I have been trying to find a reason to make everyone come over here. Yes. Apparently the draw card of being like, you can just come crash in our offices isn't enough for people, but we're trying to make it happen. So when it does, I will absolutely let you know.
I would love to. You know, we have two ambassadors from New Zealand, Jed Brophy and Mark Hadlow from The Hobbit. And Jed works in so many of Peter Jackson's films. Yeah. So we'll have to ask him to just go and crash at your office at some point.
Exactly. There'll be enough room. It'll be fine.
It'll be great. I'll just tell him to come see you.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit. Now, I suppose we could start with FilmConvert a little bit, just an introduction to that. But then I want you to but to share with our listeners how you became a big part of FilmConvert. Yeah, so FilmConvert is a software company. We are based in Wellington, New Zealand. And so we make color grading and color correction plugins for any filmmaker. So we have two products, which are FilmConvert Nitrate and CineMatch. FilmConvert Nitrate is a film and grain emulation tool that helps you when you're color grading and you really want to get that, cinematic celluloid film look. And then CineMatch is a color correction tool that's designed for camera matching. So you can easily match two different cameras with two different sensors together to make a cohesive shot, as you could say, as well as also, fix pretty much any discrepancies in your footage, like with your exposure or your white balance and all of that jazz. So I've been with FilmConvert, I think it's about 3 years now. I think it's actually about to come up to my 3-year anniversary, which is very cool. And also it feels like it has just gone so fast. And it really has.
I know, right? It just kind of feels like it's whizzed by. But yeah, so how did I get into it? I was originally living in Dunedin, which is at the sort of lower end of the South Island. And then I moved up to Wellington and I saw an ad for this software company and I was like, oh, that's so cool. And to be honest, I didn't really know much about color grading or anything of the likes. I pretty much didn't know anything when I first started, but then being able to learn so much and see how much knowledge goes into stuff like this has truly been outstanding. And being able to work with, all of the different cameras, being able to learn how to make cool videos and what is important when you're color grading. It's all been such an incredible experience. And so, yeah, I started off as the communications manager, and then now I am currently the marketing manager. So a lot of what I do on sort of the day-to-day basis is a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, running the social media accounts, as well as also being able to talk to creators, talk to filmmakers, and seeing what they're up to and seeing how we can help them in some way. And yeah, it's been an incredible opportunity.
You were just at NAB, right?
I was, yes.
How was that? What did you see there that might be of interest for our listeners?
It was so cool. I personally love it. It was my second time going, and I am obsessed with Las Vegas, in all honesty. I think it is just such a kitschy place, and I love it with all of my heart. To be honest, we don't necessarily go for the trade show as much as we do more for the networking side of things. So a lot of what we like to go and do is sort of go to the events in the evenings and being able to meet up with creators. And I was saying to so many of them that it was so weird meeting them in person and being able to see their physical body and not just like a face on an email, you know?
Yes.
It's so bizarre. But I think there was so much cool tech going on. I think what was so cool was seeing the new Blackmagic camera. That was insane. I know, it was crazy. And yeah, otherwise just like being able to talk to everyone and being able to meet people, or even the amount of times where I would talk to someone and be like, oh yeah, I'm from FilmConvert, and for them to be like, oh, I use you guys, or, you know, I purchased a license a while ago. It's always so nice because we are so far away in the world. It's really hard to feel connected to your audience. Whereas when you go to somewhere like that, it was like, oh, people know who we are. This is so great.
Yeah, you're a star. I mean, FilmConvert has a great reputation with filmmakers. Why don't you share just some of the most popular filmmakers that people may know of who are listening?
Ooh. There's so many. It's hard to kind of think off the top of my head. I think the one that I always flex the most is a guy called Harry Locke. He is so sweet. He is so cool. But he shot a campaign for Adidas and Ivy Park, which is Beyonce's fitness line. And so there are shots of Beyonce that have been graded with FilmConvert. And when I saw it, I screamed. I was so excited. As well as that, we also work closely with a videographer, Real Beer Media, who does a lot of stuff for 21 Pilots, a band, which is really cool. It's been used by the likes of HBO and BBC and a whole bunch of other things. But there's so many times as well where we think that someone has used our products, but there's no way of actually being able to verify it, because a lot of them might not want to give away that they used a plugin. But we know deep down, I can see that grain on your screen, and I know those grain scans.
They're trade secrets.
Exactly.
That is awesome. You know, I think you guys have a lab, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say so. Yeah. We have a lab. We have a room in which we do a lot of our camera processing data. I don't know if it's as fancy as a lab, but there's a lot of cool equipment in there.
Well, I'm sure you're not doing gene splitting for dinosaurs or anything like that.
I mean, that could be our next side venture. I don't know.
But you do test different cameras, right? To get the matching. Speaking of CineMatch. Yeah.
So pretty much what we do is whenever we get a camera in store or in our offices, we will put it through the test and we shoot an identical scene at all different exposures and at all different conditions. So then we can accurately map all the sensor data afterwards. So our CEO, Craig, has built a lot of proprietary tools that will be able to, actually be able to get all the right information that we need for the likes of sensor matching or things like that, or even with the general FilmConvert camera packs. Because the idea for both plugins is that the first step that you do is you input your camera brand, the camera specific model, and then the specific profile that you shot on. And then what that does is it matches all of the controls within the plugin to the specific camera that you shot on. And it just means that you get more accurate results. They're tailored towards your specific camera, and there's a lot more flexibility that comes with that. But it's a very rigorous process, having to be able to, you know, set up the cameras, shoot them all in identical conditions. It can be quite time consuming, but the payoff is absolutely worth it.
Yeah, it sounds very meticulous.
Yes, it is. I'm glad I don't have to do it personally.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the smartphones. Because the iPhone 15 came out with the log capture feature. Mm-hmm. And that has to be a game changer for everyone. And your software plays very well with that, because I know that before the iPhone 15, it was basically Filmic Pro that you were able to do that with, but now it comes as part of the native camera, which is what I call it, on the 15 Pro and the Pro Max.
Yeah. I mean, it was so difficult before with older versions of the iPhone, because for the likes of CineMatch, which is the camera matching tool, that's where having iPhone profiles would be so worthwhile. Because if you're ever on set and say, for instance, your main camera is like a Sony or something, and you want to get some good B-roll footage on your phone, it's really hard to then match those two, because, you know, the sensors are so different. You can definitely tell there's discrepancies between the both of them. So then when Apple Log came out, it was like a game changer, especially because we did previously profile all of the Apple, or I think most of the iPhone range as of recently we've been able to profile, but there was a lot of dynamic tone mapping involved, and a lot of the data that we would get would clip out quite badly, which meant that we were able to get data to make profiles, but it wasn't as much data as
because it would go outside of the range, right?
Exactly, yeah. And so it would then be really hard to actually make a specific profile for that, which is why the likes of Filmic Pro were so great at being able to have an app that would be able to shoot in Filmic Log. But now that Apple Logs came out, I mean, it's completely revolutionized the way in which we think about mobile filmmaking. I think it's opened up the possibilities of what you can shoot on your phone exponentially, and we're so grateful for that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some of the tests, you know, that people put out with the log capture, and I haven't seen them done with CineMatch yet. But I can only imagine how much better it can be. And you've got, I mean, to the regular people, they're watching these films. It also depends how they're watching it. Are they watching it in a cinema screen, or are they watching it streaming off a large screen, or are they watching it on an iPad? You know? Yeah. And when people start watching a film, especially a good film with a great story, it's captivating, they just sort of dive in and they don't think about all these little technicalities, but you can get turned off from the wonderful, captivating story if, you know, things start to blur out and the audio gets really bad and things like that. So you're in there, you're in the lab, or you're able to see these things firsthand. Is there really that much of a difference between an iPhone Pro Max, say, movie, right? Shot with the Vlog and then processed through CineMatch, between that and most other films?
I think it's one of those things where, like, for instance, when you're in the know, you kind of know. So, like, I have been pretty much banned from watching movies with my friends because I will be there and I will be pointing out and being like, they used a different camera. They used a different camera and they didn't match it up. And so I think it's one of those things where when you've kind of worked with it for a long time, you're able to definitely tell more than the average viewer. I mean, you're totally right as well. It also depends on what type of screen you're watching it on. You know, there's like the difference between a MacBook screen and your TV screen versus like another computer monitor that you have is all so different, and things can vary between them all. I think in terms of the iPhone footage, like if you are using CineMatch to match your iPhone footage to another camera, you can definitely get them looking very close. Obviously, it's never going to be 100% a perfect match just because that's impossible. Right. But we can get it to 99.9% close, which is all we can ask for, really.
Well, and that means that anyone, and of course, I'm not talking about Marvel movies or Lord of the Rings, you know.
True.
But, you know, for most people, I don't think they realize it. And I think most filmmakers aren't really making films for filmmakers.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like you're making a film because you have a story that you want to tell and you're passionate about it. Like I don't think there's many people in the world that will be making a film and be like, oh, I can't wait to get the check out of this one. Like, surely it's a nice sort of caveat to it, but you make it because you genuinely love it and you love what you do as well. Except there's just so many tedious parts that go into it. But yeah, I think once you're kind of in the industry for a while and you sort of start to realize all the tiny little things that go along behind the scenes, it's a game changer. And it will also low-key ruin the way you watch movies forever, because now I can't watch something without immediately going on IMDb and being like, what camera did they use? What film stock did they shoot on? I need to know all the details.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of a little, it would be sad, right, if everybody who's watching your film is another filmmaker and they're just looking for all the, you know, those little things, those little tiny little details, you know.
Yeah.
It's funny when you said that about they're using a different camera, because when I worked on films, you did not want to use, say, a Sony and a Panasonic or something like that, you know. But I remember we were shooting this one scene. It was the last scene that we were shooting. It was a sunset, you know, the golden hour thing. And it was a romantic scene. And then we, the card ran out of space, you know, and the guy says, uh-oh. And they almost had it. They just needed to shoot it one more time to get this one thing right. And the AD says, actually, I have a Panasonic, blah, blah, blah. I can't remember the model number in the trunk of my car. And the guys all run and get it. And it was just like, that was such a fluke, though. That just doesn't happen. You know? But it was that kind of a scene where you did not want to switch a camera on.
Yeah, definitely. I think like a lot of the use case that we often will find it for as well is a lot of the more, I don't mean fringe cameras, but a lot of the cameras that are, for instance, like drones and GoPros and iPhones of the likes, where they are in a different realm to, for instance, your DSLR or your like cinema camera and things like that. So it is a lot of cases of matching between those two types of camera. But even what we've found is cameras within the same brand, they can still look different, because even if their sensors are similar and the color science is similar, there's still always going to be like, it's never going to be an identical match, you know? And sometimes, especially if you're using an older model versus a newer model, or a Sony FX3 versus the A7S3. It's like you would think that just because they're both Sonys that they would look the same, but they don't, surprisingly, which is, I don't know, I always found that quite interesting. And the more I kind of worked with the company and sort of learned how we do all of these processes, the more I've actually come to notice it as well. And so, yeah, that's why I recommend CineMatch for all filmmakers, because it's a very useful tool to have.
Yes, of course. And I think what you're speaking to, I think a lot of people, I mean, you get an upgrade from your phone, right? And every year, every 2 years or whatever, right? And so I think a lot of people understand that, for example, I have somewhere in this house, there is an iPhone 4, which fits in the palm of my hand. It's just like a Barbie phone, you know, at that point.
Yeah.
It's so tiny. And I also have a 4S. And then I have a 6 and I have a 10, you know, and if I was filming with each one of those, they're all Apple, they're all iPhones, but each one of them is going to shoot a different type of footage.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing that happens with traditional cameras, you know, and even just shooting. I was a script supervisor for some films as well. And I remember saying, well, if you're going to shoot like pickup shots and things like that. Well, you don't want to shoot them at a completely different time because the light is going to be different,
Yeah.
And then it's almost like you insert a shot there and you're like, wait, what happened there? And it was the same camera, but the environment was different.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And it's like there's so many things in terms of everything around you will have some sort of pivotal role, whether it be big or small, into the way that your image turns out, like the tiniest lighting or, the set design and everything like that. It's like they're all variables in this huge concoction that is filmmaking. And so it's always very hard to get everything lined up perfectly so it all comes out.
So let's talk a little bit about something that I love this. I love the name of this. This is Rubber Monkey.
Yes, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So Rubber Monkey is a great service. They are a fantastic company. And if you are in Australia or New Zealand, I highly recommend checking them out. So FilmConvert is the kind of sister company to Rubber Monkey or Rubber Monkey Software. So Rubber Monkey is a company that's based in Wellington as well. And they do a whole bunch of, selling of camera gear, audio gear, video gear, pretty much any sort of gear that you would need as a filmmaker. We kind of describe them as sort of the B&H equivalent for Australia and New Zealand. Yeah, which is really great. And so they kind of have a subsidiary called Rubber Monkey Software, in which we are part of. So I believe it sort of started kind of within the early days of FilmConvert. So this is going back to about 2012. Rubber Monkey were selling, they were selling film to people, and it was reaching points where a 10-minute roll of 35 millimeter film would cost about 1,000 New Zealand dollars.
Jeez.
And then it was at that point where our CEO Craig was sort of looking at this, as well as also how popular red cameras were at the time and how, their color science was fine, but it wasn't necessarily the look that a lot of people were going for because they wanted that film look. And then from there, that's what then inspired FilmConvert and has now led us to the product that you see today.
Yes. No, I love it. I was cruising around in there a little bit earlier and I saw IK Media, who makes the iRig, which is the unit that I started using right after 2012, actually, right after the first film festival for the San Diego Mobile Film School. And that is the unit that I would recommend to everyone. And I bought two of them. They were like $30-$40 each, and I was like, I'm getting two, one for backup, and that's the one that would convert the audio so you could connect it to the phone and use XLR cables for microphones, because for me that was always like a big deal, coming from audio world. And I also saw DaVinci Resolve, which is from Blackmagic as well, from Blackmagic Design. And then Blackmagic, by the way, they came out with their camera about a year ago. And they just announced they're coming out with the Android version, which I'm so happy for.
Are they?
Yes.
That's really cool. That's really, really cool. Because what I found as well is like we have tried to profile sort of, like Samsung cameras or Google Pixel cameras and things like that, but it's never really gone too far. It's oftentimes, other things will come up that sort of take precedence over that. But there's an ever growing demand for those sort of Android markets as well. And I don't know why that is, but I oftentimes think of, whenever you think of mobile filmmaking, to me, in my mind, the association is always on an iPhone, especially because, they've marketed it that way. You think of things like Tangerine, which was the first sort of feature film that gained a lot of prominence shot on iPhone. But it's like Android cameras and Samsung cameras are still pretty good.
Yeah.
And being able to be like the Blackmagic app being on Samsung, that's going to be a game changer for so many people as well.
Well, in our film festival, ever since the beginning, now we don't allow mobile devices. The saying, the quote unquote mobile devices.
Yeah.
The whole thing was everybody has access to a phone. And to me, that was the future. It was about the phone. It wasn't about iPods or any of, the GoPros or any other thing. And so we always stayed with the phone. But ever since the start, it was always about any phone. If the manufacturer said on the manual, this is a phone, it qualified.
Totally. Yeah. And I think especially it's like people sort of, whenever they think of like phone videos, it's never thought of as something as laborious as a feature film or something like that. Because quite often the way in which I use sort of videos on my phone is if I see something cool in a fleeting moment, or I'm at a concert, or one of my friends is doing something stupid or things like that. And you sort of think about it more as like content production and, putting something up to share on social media or something that is a bit more short form. Whereas it's really hard, or it's not difficult, but realizing that it's like, oh no, this, you don't just have to use it for capturing small moments. Like you can use this as a proper tool, and you can use this as an asset for your filmmaking kit. And there's a lot more opportunities that come from it because, like you were saying, everyone has access to a phone pretty much. And so, you have a camera right at your fingertips, and you can make great films with it as well. You don't need to just limit yourself to, something that will go up on Instagram Reels or things like that.
And you know what? I had a lot of friends who were making films and video producers and things like that. And they were like, are you kidding me? But I'm not leaving anybody out, because even Steven Spielberg, he may have, the $200,000 camera, but access to that, but he has a phone too.
Exactly, yeah, because was it him that shot a music video from... Yes, it was. It was the Mumford & Sons music video on an iPhone, right?
Yes. And he shot it all in one take. It was just...
Exactly.
On a wheelchair, not a wheelchair. Like we used to use that when I worked in video production. We would lease the wheelchairs from the San Diego Blood Bank, and we would use it when we would go out to shoot commercials and things, because we would have the camera person sitting, holding the camera on the wheelchair, and then we would push them to do like, kind of like a dolly shot without all the bells and whistles. And it would come, and wheelchairs are so smooth. Some people just don't understand how smooth they are.
Yeah, totally.
But Steven Spielberg used an office chair that had wheels on it, and he had somebody, pull him in to do the dolly shot, the dolly in, for the video. And he shot that whole, the guy was singing, and he shot that music video all in one take as well.
It's incredible, eh?
I want you to share with our listeners, as we start to kind of wrap this up, the reasons why they should download, at least to try it, right? FilmConvert and CineMatch.
I think my biggest ethos is always just, we want to help you achieve the look that you've envisioned, like for me personally, I am such a fan of the celluloid film look. I love the look of grain. I love the look of film and how it just brings this really soft and romantic feeling to whatever you're shooting. And I think as well, it helps with the likes of even mobile filmmaking or any sort of filmmaking where sometimes it can just look too digital. It looks too crisp and too refined, whereas when you shoot on something like film, there's always going to be a bit more of a sort of tactile feeling to it. And so I definitely recommend just trying out FilmConvert just to give your footage that little bit of an extra oomph, just being able to add to that sort of dreamy feeling that comes with film, knowing without that, you don't actually have to go out and shoot it. You don't have to spend the money on going out and buying the film, getting it processed, getting it scanned, and then still having to do additional grading on top of that. It's a really convenient and easy to use tool that just helps you allow to get that vision that you've been dreaming of. As well as with CineMatch. CineMatch is just great for especially if you're starting out with your video making journey, and if you're still not feeling 100% like comfortable with your camera, it's really great for then being able to make any additional corrections to your footage like you would in your camera, but being able to do it in post. So for instance, you're able to accurately adjust your white balance or your exposure, your temperature, your tint, and being able to sort of make any color adjustments before you start your actual grade. Or even better yet, you can just apply a simple Rec 709 transform, and then that way it's ready to be viewed on a monitor or being able to like be out there in the universe, you know? And so I think the two go really well hand in hand. CineMatch, in order to get comfortable and get your image, you know, the kind of nitty gritty work that no one really wants to do. It's really good for being able to kind of do that in an easy and efficient manner, as well as also camera matching, of course. And then being able to use FilmConvert as like the cherry on top, just being able to, you know, get that really subtle but really dreamy look of film and being able to make something that you're proud of, you know. But also at the same time, I think everyone should at least give it a go and then find a workflow that best suits you, and being able to at least say that you've tried it and being able to play around with it and really get to know the software, get to know the controls that you're working with, what everything does, and how you might be able to use that to your advantage. And plus, we've got a lot of very exciting updates, so you'll definitely want to be in the know for those.
Yeah, you have a newsletter as well that everyone should sign up for, because that will give you the firsthand knowledge of what is coming up. You guys have CineMatch is only like what, a year old? Oh, you have, you know, let's bring up the new one.
Oh, Halation? Yes. So Halation we released in November last year, and basically it is another filmmaking effect. So it's currently an add-on for FilmConvert Nitrate, but we will be making it its own standalone product as well. But essentially Halation, it's a very small and arbitrary thing, but it's again one of those things where once you notice it, you can never unnotice it. Mm-hmm. But back in the day, or the way in which that film is constructed is that there's 3 different layers. You have your green layer, your blue layer, your red layer, as well as also a film emulsion layer as well, anti-halation backing as well. And so what will happen is that quite often when light travels through, there's an anti-halation backing layer which will absorb all of the extra light so it doesn't bounce back. But quite often back in the day, they didn't necessarily have that anti-halation backing, or a lot of the film stocks would actually strip that. And so what it does is then the light would travel through the different emulsion layers of the green, the blue, and the red channels, bounce back off the sensor and back into the red channel. And so what it does is it causes around very bright parts of your image, like you can specifically see it around light bulbs or car headlights, is this red glow around it. Mm. So the next time you're watching something, I would say from like maybe the 2000s before, look out for any sort of street lights or any bright lights, and what you'll see is a red ring and a red glow around it. And I don't know why, but it just makes it feel more cinematic in that way.
Dreamy.
Especially because it does. It makes it look really dreamy. And it also helps as well because if you have really like very, very bright lights, it again helps to kind of soften it, and it helps to make it so it's less harsh as well. But yeah, it's a really cool effect, and it doesn't just affect the bright lights in your image, but it can actually affect your whole image, because obviously, you know, a camera can't tell exactly where one specific light is. So it means that all of your image like will sort of have the effect on it, but it just is more noticeable around really bright sources. But yeah, if you are interested in trying it out, we have a free trial that has no time limits, no control restraints. Pretty much your image will be watermarked until it's activated with a license. But I recommend just giving it a go and feeling it around and seeing what it can do for you.
Yeah, it's definitely, look, we're playing, right? For the most part, until we decide to create something. And this happens a lot with mobile filmmaking, Henessey, because, you know, people, they have the tech. They have the biggest part of the tech already in their pocket, in their hand, the camera. And like you were talking about, oh, my friend just did something funny, or I'm at a concert, or we're at a restaurant. Look at this food, right? And so it's very experimental natured as it is. So to do something like this and then go home and say, well, I'm going to apply this software that I can just test and experiment with. That's a lot of fun.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think as well, it's like each of the film stocks that we support in FilmConvert Nitrate, for instance, they all have their own different characteristics to them. They're not all going to be the same cut and paste of a different film look or whatever. You've got black and white stocks, you have motion stocks, you have still stocks, and each of them have their own particular characteristics and their particular traits for it, where, it might be a bit of a softer kind of warmer image. It might be that the greens and the blues are really highly saturated, or anything of the likes. And what it actually does is it then plays into the overall feeling of the shot, and there's so many correlations between color grading and color theory, where it can really help you create a feeling and a sense for your scene that is just portrayed through colors, which I think is amazing. And I think that the film stocks are really fun to play around with, because it just gives all of your shots a different vibe. And quite often I'll be sitting there, if I'm testing footage, and just going through all of the different film stocks and being like, oh, I like that, or oh, no, that's not right for this shot. But it's all a matter of being able to at least try it and see what your vision is and what best suits you.
And it will, if you're creative in any way, which everyone is in my world, I think everybody is more creative than they give themselves credit for.
Absolutely.
It will inspire you, because you will see something, the footage that you just caught with this thing, just panning across your own living room, and then getting that stock, say, on a green tint or something like that. All of a sudden you're going, oh my gosh, it's the X-Files.
Exactly.
It's like a scene of the X-Files. Oh my gosh, I can make an X-Files type movie. And next thing you know, you're starting to create an idea for your film, and you're inspired. And I think one of the best ways to start thinking about the stories you want to tell, the films you want to make, is that what if question. What if this was, I'm in a spaceship? What if my room was a spaceship? What if, these kinds of things, and you get your creative juices flowing, and it can all happen at no cost. You download this thing, you try it out, you play around with it, you start to get an idea of what you can create and what the outcome will look like. And it can start to shape your story. Next thing you know, you're writing a screenplay, getting your people together and making a film. And then you can purchase the license so that you can bring that all to life.
Exactly, right? And it's always going to be that the hardest part about any sort of project like this is going to be doing it and, getting yourself motivated to actually start doing something like that and trying to think of, your story. And it's always going to be a difficult task. But once you're in it and you just get stuck in it, you can just have fun. And I think that's always going to be the most important thing, is always remembering to enjoy yourself, enjoy the moment and have fun. And don't be afraid to step back and kind of take some time away from whatever you're working on to really readjust yourself and readjust your eyes, and being able to see or make sure that what you're doing is actually what you want to be producing. And we just hope that we can be part of the process in some way.
Well, you definitely are. I don't want to end this without mentioning and without thanking you and FilmConvert for being a sponsor of the International Mobile Film Festival here in San Diego. And you are our longest running sponsor to date, and probably forever, because, no one can start sooner than you, since you're already there.
Well, I don't know about next year. No, of course. We will be absolutely sponsoring the next years to come. It's always an absolute pleasure to be able to sponsor events like this. It sucks that we can't get there in person, just because it is quite a long flight. But at the same time, it's just so great to be a part of events like this, where it's really encouraging people to, no matter sort of what your experience level is or what your relationship to filmmaking is, to, again, like we were just talking about, giving it a go and being able to produce something that you're proud of. And not only that, just being able to be inspired and being able to then go out and create whatever it is that you're after. And I think that all the work that you've been doing for so long has been absolutely incredible. And you've been doing so much for the community as a whole. And you should be really proud of yourself for how far the festival has come and how further it will go in the future.
Well, like I always say, if it wasn't for the movies that people are making, there would be no festival, you know?
Exactly.
But who's to say, right? Someone who starts out making a movie with a phone, next thing you know, they're standing right next to Steven Spielberg, you know, making that next feature film as a 100%. Cinematographer.
Exactly, right? It's like everyone has to get their start somehow. And the easiest way in which you can do that is by picking up your phone, shooting some videos, putting it together in the free version of DaVinci Resolve, and trying to make a narrative out of it. And once you get used to the idea of getting a bunch of clips, being able to then put it together and trying to find a common narrative or a common theme, and getting more familiar and more comfortable with the editing tools that you're using, you're off from there. It's just, you know, there's nothing stopping you. So you might as well just give it a go and see what you can create.
All right. One last thing. I keep saying this, but these things, I'm listening to you. And so these things are being spurred up. What are some of the most popular? You mentioned DaVinci Resolve. I know you work with that. What are the other video editors that this plugin, this works as a plugin for your video editor? We didn't even mention that.
So yes, we work for DaVinci Resolve as well as Adobe Premiere Pro and After Effects, as well as Final Cut Pro.
Awesome.
I oftentimes will recommend, especially for the likes of, you know, mobile filmmakers, I do recommend giving the free version of DaVinci Resolve a go, because it is free, so you might as well do it. And it's
loaded.
It is loaded with features, especially like it's a very, I don't know, I personally kind of find it a bit overwhelming, but I'm a Premiere Pro girly at heart and I always will be. But I think it's a really good place to at least get a start. And, you know, it's free. You have so many tools at your disposal, and there are so many great YouTube videos and courses that you can take that'll help you be able to get familiar and get comfortable with it.
That's fantastic. All right. Any last words? Anything we missed?
No, I just think stay tuned on our social media platforms. You can find us at FilmConvert, because we have so many exciting new plugin features coming out. Unfortunately, we can't give too much away as of right now, but they are worth it. So you should absolutely keep an eye out for those. But otherwise, it has been so lovely chatting to you. Thank you for having me. And I can't wait to see all of the next generation of filmmakers that come out all shooting on their phones. And if you grade something with FilmConvert, please tag us and send it to me on social media, because we will absolutely share it.
Yes, you do. You're awesome. By the way, kudos to you and FilmConvert for having you with all the social media and all your communication. Love it. We will put the links in the notes for everyone so that they can go before you go. Click on that link and sign up for their newsletter. Henessey, say goodbye to our listeners.
Oh, ka kite anō. Thank you so much for having me. And I can't wait to see everything that everyone creates very soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
No, thank you.